All right, let's talk about a word. It's a word so many of us use against ourselves. This label that's simple, powerful, and, as we're about to see, almost always completely wrong. That word? Lazy.
You ever have that feeling? You're just staring at a task. You know you need to do it. You might even want to do it, but you just can't start.
Or how about this one? You feel this deep, down-to-your-bones exhaustion. Even if you got a full night's sleep, it makes no difference, and you have absolutely no idea why. Yeah, it's that feeling like your brain is just stuck in park. It's mental paralysis. Your mind just refuses to shift into gear, no matter how hard you try to force it.
When we feel these things, what's the one word that society, and let's be honest, our own inner critic loves to throw at us? Lazy.
But what if that's not just the wrong word? What if it's a profound and even harmful misunderstanding of what is actually going on inside our brains and our bodies?
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we have to pull that label apart and see what it really is. It's not a diagnosis, it's a judgment.
And this is the absolute core of the issue. Laziness isn't a scientific term. It's a moral judgment. Burnout, on the other hand, well, that's a real, measurable, physiological shutdown. It's your biology talking, not a flaw in your character.
A lot of the time, what we're calling laziness is actually something called executive dysfunction. Just think of your brain as a company. The front part of your brain is the CEO. It's in charge of planning, starting projects, and making decisions. Executive dysfunction is like a massive traffic jam right outside the CEO's office. The messages just can't get through. It's a neurological bottleneck, not a choice to slack off.
Okay, so if it's not really a biological fact, where on earth did this whole idea of laziness even come from? Well, turns out it had to be invented.
You know, the concept of laziness as we know it today was literally built over centuries. First, it was used by powerful institutions as a tool to keep people in line. Then the Industrial Revolution came along and started to measure a person's value by their output, like they were a machine on an assembly line. And now, we've got modern hustle culture, which screams at us that any moment of rest is a sign of weakness. It's a social idea, not a scientific one.
And that leads to this incredible reframe. The problem isn't you. You're not failing to keep up with the world. The problem is a world that is demanding way more than a human nervous system was ever designed to handle.
All of this points us toward the real culprit, the actual phenomenon hiding behind that mask of laziness. And that's burnout. Now, burnout doesn't just happen overnight. It's not like flipping a switch. It's more of a slow collapse, and it usually happens in about 3 stages. First, you're in overdrive, just running on pure adrenaline. Then you slip into a slow collapse, where you can still function, but you are completely and utterly drained. And finally, you hit shutdown. That's a full system crash where even the most basic tasks feel absolutely monumental. It all comes down to what's happening in your brain. Think of it like a computer. A healthy, rested brain operates in safe mode. You've got access to all the good stuff, clear thinking, creativity, motivation. But a burned-out brain, it's been forced into survival mode. It's not thinking about your to-do list anymore. It's focused on one thing, survival. And to do that, it starts shutting down anything it sees as non-essential, which, unfortunately, includes your focus and your drive.
So here's the tricky part. From the outside, burnout and laziness can look exactly the same. But on the inside, in terms of what you're actually experiencing, they are polar opposites. Let's really dig into the difference.
Let's break this down. At its core, burnout is about inability. Your system physically lacks the capacity. Laziness, though, is about unwillingness. You could, you just don't want to. Emotionally, burnout is soaked in shame, guilt, and frustration. Laziness feels more like indifference or even comfort. How about energy? A burned-out person is completely depleted. Even rest doesn't seem to recharge the battery. A lazy person is just preserving their energy, which is still totally available for something fun. And just listen to the internal monologue. Burnout is whispering, something is seriously wrong with me. Laziness just shrugs and says, I'll get to it later. See? They couldn't be more different.
And look, understanding this difference isn't just some interesting mental exercise. It is absolutely crucial. It's the key to getting out of a really destructive cycle.
Because when you mislabel your burnout as laziness, you trap yourself in this vicious shame cycle. It goes like this. You can't start a task. Step 2, you call yourself lazy. That brings on this wave of shame and guilt. That shame increases your stress levels. And what does more stress do to an already exhausted system? It drives you deeper into burnout, which makes it even harder to start the next task. It's a downward spiral. Shame is a paralyzing force, not a motivator.
So I really want this to sink in, this powerful idea from the source material. That struggle you've been feeling, it's real, it's valid, it's explainable, and it is not a moral failure. You were exhausted, you were overwhelmed, you were dysregulated, but you were never, ever lazy.
And that brings us to the most important question of all. The next time you feel that way, instead of asking, "Why am I so lazy?" try asking yourself this instead. If this isn't laziness, what does my system truly need right now? Because the answer is never more shame or more willpower. The answer is almost always compassion, genuine rest, and the space to recover.